then we started Dream Sponsors to provide basic needs and school fees for identified orphans and vulnerable youth in various parts of Kenya. And then we realized that we needed to do more.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk Live with Julia Sana. I am so excited to have you on here today. This is Monday the 13th, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and a licensed mental health counselor. And today I'm so excited to be talking to Carla Neumann. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist who was also my postgraduate internship supervisor many years ago, 12 plus years ago. And she has been doing some amazing work in Kenya, in East Africa, and now also expanding to Ghana and other countries in Africa. And I was just so excited to have her. She's been a friend. Our band Positively Africa played for Dream Sponsors, and she'll talk a little bit about Dream Sponsors, but it is amazing. As an African, as a Kenyan, they're doing amazing work. They've done amazing work changing the lives of children who did not have parents or who had been bereaved and probably would have had no way. If you guys remember how it is with education, there's a lot of fees to pay, and sometimes people drop out of school or don't end up going to school because of that. And also not having a home or having somebody consistently caring for you can affect your education as a child anywhere around the world, and especially in a home where you've had a loss of parents or no caregivers that could be traced at the moment. And then also her latest initiative, she'll talk about it, is My Girl Tribe. I was so honored to look through it just a little bit as a girl, as a woman, as an African, and of course, just the honor of seeing the amazing work that she's doing. So if you've been sitting there wondering what are some of the things that you could be involved in, let me just ask you guys to pop your ears open and have Dream Sponsors and My Girl Tribe in your next slate of charities and organizations to look at and support, all right? So I'm gonna welcome my friend Carla right now. Hi Carla, welcome to Let's Talk Live with Julia. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm so thrilled and honored that you thought of me to be on this show. And I congratulate you on what the wonderful work that you are doing and you continue to do. You are just amazing. You are a pleasure to supervise. I'm always inspired by you, Julia, and thank you. And I should mention that we share the same birthday.
We do.
It was written in the stars that we were to work together. So
it was. You're welcome. It was. And you know what? It was so weird the way we started working together, because my husband actually met you, Julius met you before I did. And when he came home, he told me, I met this amazing lady who's doing work in Africa, and she's a licensed mental health and marriage and family therapist who supervises. I was like, what? So he literally found me, my postgraduate supervisor. He literally found you for me. So that was so interesting. And I was mind blown at how God worked it out, that you were somebody who I didn't have to tell a lot of history to, because you already knew, you already had a heart for Africa. You already knew some of the things I would bring into supervision as an African student, as a woman, as a therapist. So I think he just worked it out. And then when we found out we shared birthdays, that was the most ridiculous thing.
It sure was. I think I'm a lot older than you, though.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we weren't trying to post the actual differences. Yeah, so please share with everybody what inspired you to get into the mental health field, and also what inspired you to begin with Dream Sponsors and also now starting the My Girl initiative, My Tribe.
Well, there are a lot of chapters to that path, but first of all, I grew up in a family where my maternal grandmother had a serious mental illness, so it was part of our history in our family to care for her. Back in those years, they really didn't have a lot of good treatments. My grandmother had shock therapy when it wasn't refined like it is now. So She really suffered, and we really had a lot of compassion for her, although many times she really, the mental illness made our lives very difficult. So I think early on those seeds were planted, and I always had a heart for Africa. I always watched the nature shows, and I always dreamed of going there one day. And subsequently, after my undergrad, I ended up working for an airline for a while, just doing on the ground things. And we were able to travel throughout the globe, and we went to many parts of Africa, and I always dreamed of doing some work there. So in 2006, after mentoring I had gotten my master's in marriage and family therapy, and I was working in private practice, and I had always worked with different cultures, diverse beliefs, and I found it fascinating. So I wanted to do more in that area. And I ended up mentoring a young man who was taking care of some street orphans in Kenya, in Nairobi. For about a year and a half. I was working on a grant for mentoring for Catholic Charities at the time, but then I ended up mentoring him and ended up going to see them, and fell in love with the kids, the orphans he was working with. And then we started Dream Sponsors to provide basic needs and school fees for identified orphans and vulnerable youth in various parts of Kenya. And then we realized that we needed to do more for the girl child, because the girl child is so exploited throughout the continent. The things that girls are dealing with, it's mind-blowing. So in 2000, and I went to Kenya several times. In 2018, I spent some time in the Maasai with 6 other women friends of mine. We stayed in a manyatta with the Maasai tribe for 4 days, and we spent the nights there in the huts, and the women shared with us what their lives were like. We lived their days with them. They taught us how to do their beadwork, how to milk cows, just what their day is like. And the women really, really have so many challenges, and yet they want for so much better for their daughters and their sons to have a better life. So we really felt that we needed to do more to power the girl child, and that's what inspired me to work on this workbook journal curriculum throughout COVID. And then we piloted the program with through Zoom in a remote Western Kenyan village called Dago Village with 10 women mentors. And we tried out our program, and we gave them the skills to do the work. And they've been training girls ever since. They're up to about 500 girls now with our support materials. So it actually turned out better than I ever imagined. It started out kind of like an experiment, and then it just really worked out really well. And with technology now, we can do so much more than we ever could before. We can reach different corners of the world. And I feel it's a great time for women to unite and put our voices together and really help those sisters around the world who unfortunately are living in unbelievable conditions. And yet it's 2023, and I can't believe what some girls are dealing with.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. 500 girls, that is quite a lot of impact, because we know the saying that we have in Africa, and I want to say it's even beyond Africa, that it's different when you impact one girl, because one girl impacts a village, or one girl impacts a group, because we naturally want to share what we've learned. And so when you say that you've reached, at the first group, reached 500 girls, that means the impact reverberated. It went big. I think about the ripple in a river, what it was that that began that, and the impact that they've had so far. So when you began this program, especially My Girl Tribe, what were you thinking were the different scenarios between running a group like that here versus running it in Africa? What were some of the dynamics that you were looking at that were going to be different in terms of the women and reaching the women?
I think the technology was a part of that, which I have to say, I'm 61, and the technology was new for me. So when COVID hit, actually, Julia, you were the one that helped me. You introduced me to the HIPAA compliant website DoxyMe, and I was in a panic. How am I going to continue with my clients during COVID when we were in the, the lockdown, and really our clients needed us even more so during that time.
Yeah.
So when I was working with the women in Dago Village in Western Kenya, this was new for them. There was a donor out of Miami, Design Lab Give. I should back up a bit. We were partnering with Design Lab Give, and they teach girls empowerment through sewing tutorials. So they work with identified programs that teach tailoring, sewing, and upcycling of fabric and clothing and creation of all kind of wonderful designs. So I definitely want to give them a plug. We all to go together. I was going to be doing the inner wellness component, and they were going to be teaching the girls a hand-on sustainable trade, but also teaching them about how to create reusable sanitary pads. Most of these girls, and I'll show you the actual statistics on the PowerPoint in just a moment, but most of the girls are missing up to 20% of school days due to not being able to afford the care and the supplies to take care of their menstrual cycle. So in 2023, here we are dealing with that. So we're looking at, all those things that particularly these rural girls are dealing with in these countries. And I'm understanding even here in America, girls are missing school because of not being able to get their menstrual care provided for. And it just blew my mind. I think the biggest piece, though, was a lot of the youth here seem to know how to work the technology, their smartphones, computers. They get that training in school early on. I mean, whenever I have a problem with my cell phone or my computer, I just ask a kid to come show me what to do, because it's almost like they're born with this as a second language. And I'm so challenged. But the girls in these rural African villages cannot even afford, underwear or shoes or sanitary pads. So the technology just doesn't reach them. But we were fortunate to get support through other organizations that donated the resources so that we could set up this Zoom and internet in this rural African village. And that's where we started. So it was new for them and new for us, but it went surprisingly well. Every once in a while, they would have a rainstorm, and on their aluminum roof, it would be so loud, or we'd lose the power or the connection. But those are just some of the things that we overcame in order to share the material.
Wow. I'm just, wow. I'm really, it kind of brings a lot of memories about that struggle, about having enough supplies as a girl. And I know here in Palm Beach County, we just had a school where the girls lobbied to have a free depository put in the school bathroom so the girls wouldn't have to pay. Because a lot of kids who will not have that 50 cents or $1 just waiting there in their backpacks for that. So that partnership, I'm sure really made a difference with what you're doing in Kenya. So please feel free to share with us the information that you had about the impact of My Girl Tribe.
Okay, great. Okay, can you see my screen?
Not yet. Let's see.
Let me see what happened here. Let me go back. Sorry.
Oh no, that's okay.
Wait a minute. Let me end. Okay, let me go back. Okay, how about?
Perfect. It's starting in a bit. There we go.
Okay, so we are going to start now. So this is we were very fortunate to have a volunteer artist who did a lot of our artwork and some graphic design for us. And my wonderful sister, Carrie, is a health and wellness consultant, and she did all the work on the girls' feminine hygiene and overall health care, and taught them about their menstrual cycles and knowing when they're most fertile. So we've had a lot of great support. And of course, we have our wonderful board member, Lexi Sanguinetti, who had recently moved back to Kenya, and she's on our Dream Sponsors board, and she has helped us tremendously with this program as well. So I just wanted to highlight for the audience, just in case you're not aware, but just being born female sets these girls back right out of the starting gate. So we know that girls, not just in sub-Saharan Africa, but in other parts of the world, are being subject to forced child marriages. An estimated 12 million girls under the age of 18 annually are forced to marry, and often older men, and that amounts to 28 girls per minute. That is also contributing to forced early childbearing. Many of these girls die during childbirth because their bodies aren't even, developed enough to carry a child. They're assuming domestic duties at a younger age. They have a lack of basic needs. They earn much less money than the males. They have a huge amount of gender-based violence, and a total lack of education and literacy, and period poverty and preventable diseases. So these are our global sisters. I mean, we as women all over the world, whether we have the resources or not, should be alarmed by these statistics. The lack of education, factually, 39% of rural girls attend secondary schools. So that contributes to 796 million illiterate people. Two-thirds of the world's illiterates are women. 1 in 10 girls in Africa miss school because of their periods each year. So there were about between 10 and 20% of school days that are missed because of menstruation. We believe that when we empower girls and women, eventually communities benefit. So if families are prospering, women are prospering, the village prospers, and eventually so does the country. We believe, as My Girl Tribe, that we must stand together as sisters if we're going to raise the quality of life for girls around the world. So basically, if we're going to change the way forward for children, both males and females, we have to stay together and we have to hold strong, regardless of our culture, our ethnicity, our tribe. We need to hang tough and be together. Our program is based on the idea that knowledge is power. So My Girl Tribe Inner Wellness Program is empowering females globally. The tribe is an acronym for transforms negative messages into positive messages, respects thoughts, feelings, beliefs of our other tribe members. We inspire each other with positive words. We believe in each other and our own dreams, and we educate others to become their best selves. So when we discover our own strengths and our purpose and we join with our sisters, our other females, our chances of reaching our goals are greater. So we need each other to be successful. We can no longer allow tribal, ethnic, political, whatever those divides are, to keep us apart from each other. We have to be together and stay strong. We are not about dictating policy or forcing our ideals or beliefs onto women of other cultures. We're not demanding that anybody change to our way of thinking. We are simply empowering women and girls to become their best self and reach their dreams and deal with those obstacles that are getting in the way of reaching their dreams. So basically, we're operating about looking into partnering with other organizations globally that are working to empower girls and women and building these collaborative partners. And then we identify strong Indigenous female leaders already working with girls in their community, but we train them in our inner wellness curriculum, and then we give them the tools to further and work with these girls and be able to help them from a psychological standpoint, from a health, a physical standpoint, and spiritual standpoint. So we're really teaching them about envisioning their dream goals, setting goals. I'm trained to do hypnotherapy, so a lot of what I do has to do with teaching them to use their 5 senses and go within to find their strength and empowerment. So basically, we believe it takes a tribe to raise a girl's quality of life. So we want to find our own voice and harmonize our voices with all the girls together. Our program is based on brain-based learning concepts, that 4 styles of learning, and that includes visual, tactile, auditory, and subconscious internalization. These are our sessions. We address what is self-esteem and how is that developed? Our second session is tailoring, dream tailoring, we call it, but it's learning how to use your mind's eye and envision your dreams, how to set goals, how to record goals, and how to reach your goals. Session 3 is all about transforming stinking thinking. It's really based on cognitive behavioral therapy. Session 4 is addressing gender roles. So learning how to stay strong in these different relationships with different cultures that have different beliefs about the male and female role. Session 5 is about learning to find your voice and set healthy boundaries. Session 6 is all about learning how to relax, be mindful, deep breathing. And then in session 7, my sister covers the whole idea of turning period shaming into positive exclamation points and understanding how to know when you're most fertile. Every session starts with a pledge that's inspiring, and the girls do it together. And we also assess our outcomes. So we have satisfaction surveys for the Indigenous leaders that we train, and also for the girls. We have pre and post testing with scannable bubble sheets that we're working with. And then we do everything through our Zoom training with the Indigenous leaders. And then we provide support for them to do the program with the girls hands-on in their home communities. So I just wanted to share a quick clip of some of our girls in Ghana. They were wonderful. These women in Ghana have taken that we trained 5 women back in February, actually Valentine's Day of last year, because we were promoting self-love. And we worked with these 5 women who are already wonderful leaders in their communities. So we're working in rural Ghana in the Ho Volta region, and they have just taken this program and run with it. So they've trained about 300 girls in their villages with the program model. And some of them, the girls, have now enrolled in some of the other programs in the area, because now they're feeling empowered and they're feeling strong, knowing that they can do better with the inner wellness coping skills. So that's what I have to show you.
Wow. Thank you so much. That's incredible. I love the way that you've been so intentional about touching every aspect of their being, the inner being, and using the 5 senses. And I was writing down some of the stuff that you were talking about, especially the ones that reached out to me, remembering growing up, how hard it was to set boundaries. That's the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Because and to be honest, it's not just at home. Even here, girls are expected to have looser boundaries by being agreeable. Why don't you just do that? Why don't you just take care of that? You know, you're the only one who's available. You know, you can take care of that. And then the whole concept about around the world, girls being told, be nice, don't stand up with your own voice. So then girls were always doing a lot more than they were even capable of handling. Mm-hmm. So, and then the idea of boundary setting would be seen as almost being disobedient, because boundary setting would include things like saying, I'm sorry, I can't do that, or I don't have the time or the capacity. So it's only been I want to say, in recent years, as more the concept of autonomy, self-autonomy came in, that women were able to actually, and girls are able to learn what having a boundary and being able to say, no, I'm not able to do that, or yes, I'm able to do that, became a big deal. Because as you were sharing this, I was remembering about, even thinking about my mom, who, if she was alive, she would have been 75 this year, and what setting boundaries meant, right? Versus now. So when you're doing the lessons on goal setting and boundaries, what are some of the concepts, or what is some of the feedback that you've received from the women and the girls as they learn that particular lesson on goal setting and boundaries?
Well, it's interesting because particularly with the boundaries. Now, a lot of the girls we've been working with have been sexually violated. And we know during COVID, particularly in the Narok region of Kenya, over 13,000 girls were impregnated, and some of under the age of 18, and some of those girls were as young as 10 years old. So if we think about the idea of boundary setting, a lot of these girls don't even know that they don't even know what's happening to them, but they don't even know that they have to find strength, you know, to be together and to be able to say no and know where to go for help. Sometimes it's more about, you know, they don't, sometimes they're forced to do things they can't say no, but they can't even speak about it later. So the idea of setting boundaries is also about finding your voice, speaking your truths, finding someone somewhere you can go to and actually be able to share what's happened to you and know that a lot of this wasn't your fault. Interesting, when we trained the women in Western Kenya initially, this was playing out with the whole forced pregnancy, teen pregnancy crisis at that time. And even their views on it were like, it was almost like they were shaming some of these girls. And we kind of really carefully worked around that idea and had a meaningful discussion that this was not their fault. And you as women, you know, a lot of them had been violated, as we know, sometimes it's generational. So a lot of these women were like in very dire polygamous relationships. They were being beaten, and that was just like accepted. So of course we wanted to attend to their safety because we're trying, they were eager to be empowered, but we also want to balance that with safety. So those were some of the issues that came up as we were talking about this. We also wanted to understand how the men in their lives regarded the goals that they had. You know, it's very hard to set goals if you can't even set boundaries with your own partners or your husbands. Okay. It became very clear that they too, the men in these relationships, wanted better lives for their daughters. So that became the ticket to work with. Okay. So, and we also realize if we have to work with the men and the boys too. We can't just work with the girls or nothing to change. So the idea that, you know, finding most of the partnerships we've developed are with enlightened men in these rural villages. So they're also working with us to reach men in their communities. So we're currently we have a program we're working with in the Gambia, in Ghana, in Kenya, and then just this past 2 months, we are working with 2 teams in programs in Uganda. We're really excited to add them to our programming.
Wow. I love the way you say that you have to work with the men as well, and you intentionally bring in men, because sometimes what the programs that we've had in Africa, especially, because of the girls being neglected, there was a lot of NGOs that came in with a focus on the girl child. And then there was a movement of, okay, so are we leaving the boys behind? And then these girls are gonna, most of them will choose to be married. And so if we're having that dynamic of boys who are not as nurtured and brought up and resources poured in them as they were pouring in the girls, then you would have that whole thing going. So thank you for your focus also on bringing along the men who love these girls, either as their fathers, as their uncles, grandparents, or just men in the village. So for friends watching and everybody else who's watching right now, if you don't know the geography in Kenya, when she's just describing places like Narok, this program is actually really in the villages. If you know Kenya and other places in Africa, we do have cities, big cities just like here, but these are actual villages where some of the kids, like when I used to go visit my grandfather, and I'm not from Narok, my grandfather's was in Makueni, it would have to do with either you don't have electricity, or if you do, it has to be solar power. And then if it's water, you don't have the running water in the tap, you have to go get the water from the well or from the river. So those are the dynamics. It's actual rural villages that they're working with. So it's making a big difference in letting these girls know that there's hope and there's a future in what you're teaching them. So when you do the inner, I don't know if you have, maybe if you do have any, do you have 2 or 5 minutes to talk about the inner wellness?
Yes, I have plenty of time. I'm happy to talk. I could talk about this all day.
Right? I know, because you said my words. I love the whole inner wellness thing. Because my work, when I'm working with especially women, because now I work with women from here, women from other cultures here, but also I'm working with also women from home, from Kenya and from other countries in Africa. And we've suppressed so much.
Mm.
When you talk about trauma, there's so much trauma, like you're talking about. It's not that we're being nonchalant or just matter of fact, but sexual assault is part of the story for some of the girls. And not just that, there's also the trauma of grief and loss. When you
Mm.
add in COVID right now, um, there's also the trauma of that grief and loss. But before COVID, there was also just general issues that would cause trauma and grief, right?
Right.
And the way we've been conditioned, like I said, a lot of either the women or the girls were carrying a lot of the grief because you have to be there for everybody else. The
Mhm.
same girl child who was going to school, you're also cooking at home and caring for the other family members, especially if they're the caregiver, if they're the child who's a caregiver. So when you walk through the inner wellness, what are some of the things that you've been uncovering or you've been focusing on?
So just like you said, Julia, absolutely. A lot of these girls have, lost their mothers very young, lost their fathers, and are left behind to raise their siblings. It's
Yeah,
not uncommon to find a girl, 10, 12 years old that is trying to take care of her younger brother. We actually had one girl in our sponsorship program. So, they've dealt with loss and they're in survival mode. So, and a lot of them just need a mentor or a hand up.
yeah,
And then we really focus when we start talking about self-esteem, we've developed some activities that are more hands-on. For example, in that session, we asked the girls to write down the negative messages that they've gotten from others in their life, and that
yeah,
might still be kind of in their their hard drive, I call it, in their
mhm,
minds. And we ask them to write it down, and then all the girls get together and we provide a basket, and they write down these messages, and they do a burning ritual in which they do some really nice African singing, dancing, drumming. They burn all the negative, they watch it go up in the air, and then we ask them, we provide paints, and they get big rocks, and they write one word, one strength, one thing they really believe deep down about themselves. And
yeah,
then they all come together, they present their rock in the group, and they put it on a big tray to illustrate the idea that all these rocks together are strong, it's heavy. So we really identify the negative messages, because those girls who have, depending on developmentally how old they were when they lost a parent or something traumatic happened to them, reinforces negative beliefs about themselves. Maybe they believe they're helpless, or they're not worthy, or they're not deserving of love. All those negative cognitions that you and I try to unpack in therapy, we're
yeah,
trying to do as a group. And again, all these activities are designed to bond the girls. They learn to lift each other up instead of tearing each other down. So
yeah,
you're looking at, we do a lot of partnering off in the group activities. So they're developing strong partnerships and supporting each other. But many of the girls have experienced unspeakable things, and
yeah,
and then are left to bear, if they're impregnated by force and carrying a child, then they're bringing another child into the same kinds of generational poverty that they're dealing with. So there's a lot that comes out in those sessions, and we try to make a safe space for them and make it okay. Actually, one of the women from the Uganda program we were working with, she said it's really not part of the African culture to share openly these horrible things that have happened to them. How do I get them to open up? Well, the power becomes in the group. We as mentors need to work on creating that safe space and
yeah,
letting them it's okay to open up, and we're there to help them. If we don't have the answers, we try to refer them. And unfortunately, there still aren't resources in a lot of these rural communities. We also got into the idea of the FGM that's happening still in many parts of the continent. One woman we started working with in Baringo in Kenya is dealing with all indigenous tribes, and she's working with defilement cases, and she's trying to deal with all these young girls that are being forcefully cut, and all the trauma that goes with that. So there's so many issues that are coming up that these women are sharing with us, and they're feeling overwhelmed. So we are just being that support. We're trying to get them new tools. We don't profess to have all the answers, or certainly not the resources. We certainly need more support to be able to help them, but we're doing what we can by just being a safe space and being able to talk and listen.
Wow, that's incredible. And I love the focus on helping them acknowledge, gently helping them acknowledge their trauma while you're working through it, and then telling them, being honest on the parts that you can help and the parts that you can't help. Because some of the work that we've been doing, those of us who are African therapists, we formed this Promoting African Mental Health initiative. And so we've been doing webinars beamed into Africa, Kenya, monthly since COVID. So we've been going for 3 years now. And so we've been able to identify mental health therapists in Kenya and around the other African countries who are providing mental health counseling, trauma counseling. We were even able to identify crisis line numbers in Kenya, what to dial from wherever you are to be able to find help, talk to somebody on the phone. So I'm so excited to be able to even share this stuff with you guys, so that your people in the field know how to get these girls to use their WhatsApp if they have a cell phone, because most people in the rural village now at least have a cell phone, or they have an adult who maybe they're able to text. If they're not able to do anything, at least they're able maybe to text. And some of these groups are doing amazing work, bringing in people who are able to travel. So I'm really excited to see. And that was the goal of this talk today, for everybody watching, for you to see an organization that's doing incredible work in Africa, reaching women, and also impacting the men who love these women as their fathers, their brothers, their sons, caregivers, just to see the impact of teaching women about their inner wellness, their goal setting, boundaries, being able to do it in a respectful way. Because I know one of the things that we're concerned about is when an NGO comes out from the outside, are they coming to impose their Western culture? You know, are they coming to tell us our African culture is evil and bad and da 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 da? And I can say that to you because I know you, and I know that that was never your goal. And I love the way you approached it by letting it be indigenous led, and even your focus on having Africans look through it and be like, does this translate the same way that I'm saying it? So I love the way that you were so conscious about that and brought that into your program. So for all our friends watching, please go ahead and support Dream sponsors and support My Girl Tribe. We're going to put the links up online. Carla, thank you so much for sharing, taking us, transporting us into the amazing world of what you're doing, and giving us a very visual image of the impact on these girls during Women's History Month.
Well, thank you so much, Julia, for this opportunity, and congratulations on all the great work you're doing. And I do want to mention, we do need more volunteers. We do welcome training more people. We want to be involved. We really believe in collaboration, and we really want to expand our girl tribe. So we need all the tribe members we can get in order to be the change that we all want to see.
Yes, amen to that. So for everybody else online, guys, this was wonderful. We're going to share it. Carla is going to share it on her page as well, so that you can follow her page and the pages for more information. We will see you again for the next Let's Talk Live with Julia. I'm just going to stop our Facebook Live. But for everybody else, thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful rest of the week. And thank you, Carla, for being with us. I'm going to hang on with Carla and chat for a second. Everyone else have a wonderful week.